Episode 69, Nerdy News and Stuff.
You're listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the podcast. In case you're new to the show, I am one of the hosts, Daniel Grove. I am a photographer. I do 3D art and also a podcast. You may have heard of it. It's called the Visionary Variety Podcast, which is what you're listening to right now. We also have on the show with us Nate. He is my best friend here in San Antonio. He does video editing, and he's also super geeky and helplessly nerdy like me. We've got with us Angela Brock. She's a phenomenal artist in Kentucky, and this is a special episode because we have her and Josh Howell on the show at the same time.
Woo!
Woohoo! It's historical.
Planets align.
Each of you guys have been on quite a few episodes, but never together. This is a momentous moment.
Yeah.
It's going down in history, people.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh is, of course, our token Trekkie. I have forced him onto this episode to talk about Star Wars and other things.
Yep.
So he's over there with his hands tied. I've been splashing him with cold water every few hours, and he has no choice. Yeah. So
Send help.
So this is a Nerdy News and Stuff episode, which is a reoccurring episode that we do about every month or two, where we just really cover any kind of updates on nerdy news and stuff. It could be movies coming out. It could be comic book stuff. It could be products or some cool new gizmo that we bought, whatever. So it's very open-ended. However, in this episode, we're going to be talking primarily about Star Wars and a little bit about some fantasy TV shows that are coming up on streaming services later. So a lot of the stuff right now is about Star Wars, just because recently the Vanity Fair magazine released a huge cover spot on Star Wars Episode 9, which contained brand new information that we had not known before, and also some really great exclusive images by one of my favorite photographers, Annie Leibovitz. Awesome photographer. That kind of inspired me to do this episode. And then as I dug in deeper, I was like, there's a lot of other stuff coming out too about Knights of the Old Republic movie, about The Mandalorian, and some other stuff. So we're going to be covering a lot of mostly entertainment stuff in this episode. All right. So you guys may have seen it, but I think today, or was it tomorrow, the grand opening of Galaxy's Edge?
Tomorrow.
When's that happening? Tomorrow? Yeah. So we're going to do some big live streaming, hoo-ha thing about the Galaxy's Edge. So Galaxy's Edge is the Star Wars, area at Disneyland in Florida, and it's opening tomorrow, which is the day after this podcast recording. But by the time you hear this episode, it will have been open over the weekend. So you're going to see lots of news and coverage on that online. It looks really beautiful. I love the set designs and all the buildings and stuff. It looks really fun. If you guys had a chance, would you all go there?
Maybe not opening year because it'll be crazy busy, but eventually, I would love to go. Yeah.
So the one in Florida is World, and the one in California is Land.
Oops.
Yeah.
Disney World.
You made all
Disney
the
fans, don't kill me.
Yeah, but I
They're
can't.
all triggered.
I've seen a lot of the reality versus what it should look like, and there's nobody there in reality. It's jam packed and no fun.
Yeah, people everywhere, shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to be like, and that's why I don't go see movies on opening night. It's just craziness.
It's not worth it.
Not worth it. I can wait a week. It
Really
was really hard for Endgame, but I managed to wait a week.
No, someone will get slapped.
Yeah, so Galaxy Edge is opening. The biggest thing that caught my attention was the saber building place where you can make a custom lightsaber.
That was so cool.
That's really cool. I would love to do that for myself and my kids. It's not cheap. The lightsaber itself is $200, and I think that includes the blade.
I mean, that's about what you can buy now, but at least you can say you built it and it's yours.
Yeah.
So
I'll buy it off of Amazon for $7. Save my money.
The 3D printed copy version.
The little toy version.
Someone's going to rip them off. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so how it works is you go in and you select one of the 4 styles of saber hilts. There is an ancient kind of Jedi one. There's a more modern Jedi, and then there's a Sith, and then there's an elemental, what is it called? Elemental nature or something like that, where it's organic looking, kind of more of a tribal style lightsaber, which is weird because we don't see anything like that in any of the books or comics that I know of. Mm-hmm. One of the elemental saber hilts has a rancor tooth on the bottom of the saber. It's very natural looking. but like wood carved and things like that. So you pick your one of your 4 styles, and then you have, I think there's like 6 different parts, and you can only pick one of the 2 for each of the 3 pieces of the saber. Yeah, like you have a few options, but ultimately you only have like 6 or 8 different combinations you can do.
No, all of them.
A super long lightsaber with all the parts. But you pick your parts, and that's what you're purchasing. You're not purchasing the additional parts. So you can't like bring it home and change it up. You buy it for what it is, and you leave the rest of the parts there. You can pick your saber blade, which includes yellow, which is apparently a big deal because none of the canon films have a yellow lightsaber. And then also there is in the Disneyland, not Disney World, Disneyland, there is a saber shop, but they don't have any yellow blades. So now we're finally getting like a canonized yellow saber, which is my favorite. I like yellow for sabers other than purple, which is awesome. So yeah, there's that, $200. And then you can buy blue milk. It's a big deal. And it's going to cost probably over $6, which is so stupid.
I'm concerned it's just going to taste like water.
Does it still come from the same horrifying creature?
I'm concerned it's just going to be milk with blue dye in it.
I'll take that over.
So they're doing blue and green.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't want the blue, it's okay. You can buy the green milk that, somebody left sitting out of the fridge for a while.
Yeah.
That's the Oct2 flavor, as opposed to the Bantha milk.
It would have to taste good because this plain milk by itself is not one of my favorite.
Well, that's ridiculous because I love milk. I'll drink milk with anything.
If it was green, give me mint. Yeah. Mint.
That might be good. Mint milk?
Actually, I've had mint milk before. Like Target released a holiday flavor, and it wasn't, surprisingly enough, it wasn't bad.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds
That's funny. All right, so let's move on to the bigger, more interesting news. Vanity Fair has released a really big spot on episode 7. It was written by Lev Grossman, who's a really cool guy. There's a video of him on YouTube, and he seems like a really neat, genuine fan kind of guy of Star Wars. So he interviewed J.J. Abrams, a bunch of the actors. Mostly, it seems like all of these interviews happened at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
And then he wrote up the piece from what he learned there. From the sound of it, he has inside information as to some plot things. There's some stuff he knows that he's not allowed to write about.
I don't know. How does he know? Why do we know?
He works for Vanity Fair. That's why.
So, come on.
And you do not. The piece is also accompanied by a bunch of really phenomenal photographs by, like I said earlier, my favorite photographer, well, one of them, Annie Leibovitz, and she's the one that has got the best job in the world.
Yeah.
She's been like the designated photographer for the new Star Wars trilogy.
Her work looks like she took a clip of the actual movie and just that was it. I was like, how?
Yeah. It's just her lighting is perfect. The posing, the moments are just like, wow, how do you do it? And honestly, like, she's an inspiration for my cosplay photography because when she does photos of people, it's like they're in character, they're in the universe, and that's what I always go for too. So I love her work, and the photos are phenomenal for this bit. So let's talk about some of the details that have been released. The trailer shows Rey in a desert, another freaking desert planet.
A super clean outfit.
We can't. Yeah, she's super clean somehow. We don't know. There's the laundry system on the Millennium Falcon has been working really good.
It's the Force. You just keep the dirt off of you.
Force clean. Push
all the dirt off you.
Genius.
Force iron.
So we can't get enough of desert planets apparently in the Star Wars universe. So every trilogy gets its own
I'm fine
freaking.
With that.
I mean,
come on.
I'm just a little tired of it.
But it's just part of the trademark of Star Wars.
Low budget sci-fi set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why Star Trek's better?
Hey, that's kind of crazy. Are there any desert planets in Star Trek?
I had to get it in at least once on this episode.
Here is your clock out card for this episode. Here you
go. You are now signed out. Goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
You're not
wrong. Nice talking to y'all. I'll see y'all later.
Man, already fighting.
The only desert planet I can think of in Star Trek is when William Shatner fights Grog, or what's his name?
Oh yeah, that was in like the first episode.
Or
something. Yeah.
The best fight scene in all of cinema history. Let's just real life slow-mo. So the desert scene in the trailer, the big topic was, what planet is this? Is this Jakku? Is it Tatooine? Is it somewhere else? And it has been revealed to be a new planet, which, like I said, is the third desert planet we got. And it's actually where the old movie Lawrence of Arabia was shot. So that's kind of cool. And it is in Jordan. The filming location's in Jordan. Really beautiful looking desert spot.
Yeah.
And there is a native alien species called Aki Aki that lives on. Like how I said that? If you don't say it like that, you offend the alien race. So don't do that. Don't be that guy.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, it's cultural appropriation to not say Aki Aki. So moving on.
Aki, Aki.
You offended them. So that's planet Pasana, which is unsurprisingly at the edge of the galaxy. You guys have heard me rant about this before. Everything is always at the edge of the freaking galaxy. Mm-hmm. Like nothing ever takes place in the middle of the galaxy. It's a cool place to be. It's on the edge. Everything's on the edge. I wonder
what the middle of the galaxy is in Star Wars.
It's supposed to be the richer planets. Like I think Coruscant is closer to the center, and that's like the capital planet.
Is that what we would have saw in like episode 8 where Broomstick Boy was?
I don't know where that planet is, honestly. It seems to be.
It's just when you said higher in, my mind went there. So
the gambling, yeah. I don't know where that planet's located.
The edge of the galaxy. So is it a flat galaxy theory, like the flat Earth society?
Flat galaxy.
Sorry, I had to.
You're just going to be a designated troll for the episode.
I'm okay with that.
But I'm trolls in the dungeon.
One of the photographs from Annie Leibovitz is of Luke, not a Force Ghost Luke. He's just standing there with R2 chilling, and there's fire behind him.
The only thing I thought is maybe a flashback, but I was like, why would a photographer do a flashback scene? So
no, I don't think it's out of the question. I think it is a flashback because that's obviously when little Kylo, angsty hormonal Kylo, set everything on fire. He woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
I do appreciate one of the photographs she did take was. And I know I was just so excited because ever since I saw the trailer, when Kylo was running through the forest and he's stabbing the guy at the side, I was like, that looks like the dude from Knights of Ren.
Yep.
And one of the photographs looks, and I want to say that they confirm it, the Knights of Ren.
Yes.
Yeah, it was initially, but then they removed it.
So I saw it. So yes, I'm so glad I saw it before they took it away.
There is another photo of all the Knights of Ren. We finally get to see them clearly. I don't know if we've ever seen them clearly before.
Looks super cool.
No, I believe this is the first time, what I've seen and what I've been reading in preparation for this episode, that this is the first time that we've actually seen the Knights of Ren up close and personal.
Yeah.
Well, the only last time we got to see a good angle was when they had that flashback. I mean, when Rey had that flash forward or flashback. When she touched the lightsaber, but it was like super dark and gritty. It was like, what is that?
Just saw a big hat, big Asian hat.
Lots of sabers.
Samurai guy.
That's about it.
I don't know if these guys are force wielders or saber users, but they definitely are very Sithy and dark. And they've got all kinds of different specialization. Like one guy's got a big blaster cannon on his arm.
Yeah.
The other guys have different weapons. One dude's got a straight up Final Fantasy cloud sword. It's huge.
Oh my gosh.
So lots of fun customization. I hope they don't all die. That would just kind of stink because they seem like really cool character design.
They're from that Jedi temple.
Maybe they might have been other students with Kylo that, kind of like Satan fell from heaven and brought a third of the angels with him. Maybe Kylo did that.
Speaking of these photos from Vanity Fair, the picture of Kerry Russell's character, Zori Bliss, looking at these photos, that probably has to be my favorite photo that I've seen.
It's awesome.
The helmet her helmet has this almost Rocketeer look from.
Yes, it does.
And I like how it just looks like it's been hammered together.
Homemade.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a cosplayer. Maybe she made it herself. So I've got an interesting theory. And I might be shot to bits in a matter of a month, but I still think she could possibly be Rey's mother. The reason why I say that is because in this article, it's nailed down for sure that photo of Zori Bliss's character is taken on planet Kijimi, right? And it's also revealed that Kijimi is that city of lights that ship is seen flying towards, kind of out of the clouds and the mountain range. Mm-hmm. So when we see that ship flying towards that lit up city at night, that's Kijimi. Now rewind to Force Awakens, the ship that is shown leaving into the sky after Rey is left on Jakku, the same ship. So I think there's a flashback or some kind of connection to Rey's parents leaving her on Jakku, that ship flying up into the sky, and now fast forward into episode 9, we see that same ship going into Kijimi, and who's the new character in Kijimi? It's Zori Bliss. So I don't know. Could be. I think it'd be pretty awesome. Except for the fact that it also shoots down my other theory that her parents are the characters from Lost Stars novel. So we'll see. Have you guys seen that other awesome photo of Rey and Kylo, what appears to be fighting with all the water splashing everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful photo. I love just the motion, the texture. It's a great photo. And it definitely, if you look at the ground that they're standing on, it looks very much like metal plating, like the Death Star.
Yeah.
So maybe they have a face-off at the Death Star.
So one theory that I've heard about that is in the teaser trailer, when you see Rey looking over the wreckage of, what is it, Death Star 2 that's crashed onto the planet, that's what she's looking at. She's kind of looking at, fast forward this battle scene of her and Kylo on that. So
yeah, and she's holding something in her right arm, in her right hand. It's like a package or something, like with a handle.
She's Amazon delivery.
No matter what, we deliver. So yeah, that's a beautiful photo, and I'm very torn to I don't know what to think. Is Kylo and Rey gonna face off and fight some more? Are they like teaming up? Is Kylo being redeemed, and that's the rise of that Skywalker? I just don't know, and I can't wait to find out. Another new character in this film is Janna, which is seen with Finn riding on the backs of Orbaks. An Orbak is the creature they're on. It's like a horsey, long-haired thing. And they're riding on the back of an Orbak. I think it would be cool if Janna is Lando's daughter. That would be kind of cool. Because we all know Lando's a Rolling Stone. He's been getting around for the past 50 years. He's a ladies' man. He's got to have kids all over the freaking galaxy. Like, he can have a whole army just of his own children. Maybe they're going to come and save the day. I was going to hold this off for later, but I got to get this off my chest. I read an entire article that was a waste of my time because the theory of this article was saying that Rey is for sure going to be the daughter of Han, but the mother is not Leia.
Yeah, I think I may have read that same article that it was.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was Han's daughter from a mistress.
Another lady, yeah. They're like, after episode 6, Leia and Han had a rough time, and I'm like, no, he would never cheat on Leia. That's just dumb. So stupid.
Maybe Rey's a lot older than Kylo.
Be reflecting the old trilogy with the weird sibling
brother-sister
romance, like with Leia and Luke. It's like Rey and Kylo, but like half.
Yeah, you go back to that fan film where you see Kylo with the shirt off, and it's like, ooh.
No.
3 things you can count on in Star Wars is 1, a desert planet. 2, something related to the Death Star and never leaves. And 3, incest.
No.
Almost incest, not quite.
It's a terrible tradition to have.
Another reason why I like Star Trek. I don't have to worry about the incest.
Any of those.
I don't have to leave confused.
You can always count on the reversing of some kind of polarity in Star Trek.
Yes. Well, yeah.
I'll take that to incest any day.
Yeah.
All right. We got another new character. His name is, or he goes by Allegiant General Pride, who's going to be working with Hux. You see a picture of him in what seems to be Kylo Ren's old ship, maybe Hux's new ship. We're not quite sure. Very slick and really cool interior, that spaceship they're sitting in. This is definitely not Hux's father. There was some rumor going around that it was his dad, but in canon, based on the Phasma novel, which is canon, General Hux's father is in that book, and he dies. So Hux's dad is dead. And yeah, so the Allegiant General Pride is some kind of new big bad guy, at least in the Empire, and he comes in. Maybe he's a mole. Maybe he flip-flops sides, or maybe Hux kind of starts feeding. I think I read some theory a while back that Hux is going to be feeding vital information to the Resistance in order to kind of thwart, Kylo Ren's new position. Because Kylo, just by force, has kind of taken, what was Snoke's title?
Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yes. All right, two more things is they've hinted that we're gonna learn more about the origin of the First Order in this film, which is cool because we don't really know what happened, in that 30-year timeline where the Emperor was dead and Death Star fell, and who knows how much the Emperor fell, but somehow the First Order came out on the other end with a really, really a lot of funds on their side, a lot of expendable income.
Yeah, really.
To spend on the refitting of an entire planet to make it into Death Star. We don't know where that money came from.
He just started a Kickstarter.
He probably passed it off as like a custom lightsaber kit, and everyone's like, "Yeah, lightsabers." And then, gotcha. Death Star, blow your planet up.
No.
Last thing is they've mentioned that Kylo and Rey's origin is going to be revealed to be very closely tied together, and I really hope they're not siblings. Please don't be siblings.
So stupid. I don't want that to happen.
Never saw it coming.
Yeah.
Some of the theories that I've seen floating around the internet was that, like I said, Rey is the daughter of Han and some other woman, which is ridiculous. I don't like that. There's some issues with timeline, and also, of course, Han's character that just does not fit him. Here's a funny theory. I saw a meme. It was Snoke, and it was like the origin of Snoke revealed in Episode 9, and it showed a picture of that stormtrooper hitting his head on the doorway of the Death Star, and it's got the wound on Snoke's head circled.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome.
Oh, so funny. It's been in front of us all along. He got real bitter from that low, unsafe work standards, and he's went off, became a super villain.
Oh no.
Another theory is that Rey is a clone of some kind, or maybe one of many clones that Palpatine has been trying to make. Kind of like how with Force Unleashed, there is a character that's been cloned like umpteen times by Vader, and each time the clone doesn't work out in favor of Vader, he kills him, and then clones him again, and kind of just starts over from scratch.
That's gonna be trippy.
Yeah.
So one of the theories is that's what Rey's origin is, that she's actually been being cloned for quite a long time, if not her whole life. And that when she asks who her parents are to that reflective mirror, whatever, on Episode 7 or in Episode 8, and she sees all the copies of herself, that's like, oh, there we go, she's a clone. So I don't really buy that.
Going off of the clone thing, I actually saw a theory that Rey is the daughter of a clone of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Oh,
no. And then lastly, Snoke was hinted at having another apprentice somewhere in the galaxy other than Kylo. So one website was saying that his other hidden apprentice will come and try to steal the throne from Kylo, or try to avenge Snoke's death, and maybe Rey will side with Kylo and fight back and have a cool drama there. That might be interesting. A little bit out of left field, though.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the movie's directly mentioned Snoke is having another apprentice, but some official source, maybe one of the writers, had mentioned that. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, so that's enough about Episode 9 in Vanity Fair. Next thing up on our agenda is the Knights of the Old Republic movie. Now, Nate, you're going to be talking about this one. Tell us about this. What's going on?
It's a video game, and I unfortunately I didn't really play it. And a lot of people said I missed the bullet. So
I played it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That explains a lot.
I played like 20 minutes of it.
Wait.
Did you beat it, Angela? Did you beat Knights of the Old Republic?
I did, yes. I had to have a lot of help with a strategy guide back in the day because it was a little over my head back then, but it was fun.
And
I enjoyed
which of the 3 games was it exactly that you played?
I just played the first one. I haven't played any of the others.
Until I was doing like research and homework and understanding, I didn't know there was more than one, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
it's going to be kind of an interesting take for them to do that, because in this game you kind of have a brand new person. Like you're building a character, so you're choosing if it's good or bad. You're choosing the clothing and his friends or her friends. And
that's cool. Kind of like Mass Effect, you can change the outcome.
Yeah, pretty much. So putting it in a movie form, you're going to have to tread lightly, because there's a lot of fans that love this game. And it makes it tough. It's like, how do you take something that's like 50 hours worth of gameplay and make it like a 2-hour movie? Or
on top of that, which story route are they going to take? Are they just going to make a totally brand new one? Is it going to deviate a lot from the original game story? Or is it just going to copy the canon storyline that we know?
So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Correct me. But does the character that you play in the video game, does that individual speak at all?
No, basically the only time a character speaks is whenever you choose their dialogue option on how to respond to certain events.
So that's another problem that they're going to be running into is the character doesn't speak.
Yeah, they have to create a completely new character because in the one in the game was a blank slate for you to play whichever way you wanted.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say Revan's going to have to be the main character in the movie.
Yeah.
If they keep Revan as canonized, but I think they did canonize Revan through one of the Clone Wars episodes. Like they have like a flashback to him.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal.
Well, the Revan character is going to be an issue anyway, because I know in the video game, depending on your character, Darth Revan was either male or female.
Oh, true.
So in the video game, they changed his gender.
Yeah.
Gender switch. With this trilogy of games and the trilogy of movies, a lot of them say that there's like a sarcastic robot, which in today's world that would be K2SO. And the similarity from the main character, they're saying it's a lot like Rey. There's just it would not be a breath of fresh air, and so
it was
something
back
like
in the day. Okay,
I understand why, but
I'm just kidding.
We're in 2019 moving forward, and this is something that started in 2003, and it just won't be a breath of fresh air if they go with what the video game presents.
I just want Keanu Reeves to play Revan.
That would be interesting.
I do know that one of her creature that follow her along is a Wookiee, and so that was pretty cool.
Did you just insinuate Wookiees weren't people at first?
Ooh, offensive.
Wookiees matter.
Wookiees matter too.
Mr. Wookiee lover himself.
There's a Twi'lek character too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be. I hope they do that because Twi'leks have been in almost all the movies, but always as like slave type characters in background. Never a main speaking role. I don't think there's ever been. Maybe one speaking Jedi Twi'lek, but
so when I was saying that this is not going to be a breath of fresh air if they're not careful, is because this takes place before A New Hope and
3,000 or 4,000 years before
it's
Star Wars we know.
And I
love it.
I totally think that's awesome. I can see where people are saying the originality. It will be hard because there's so much similarity to like having like we have CP3O K2SO and they have a sarcastic robot that's not going to be any different out of the norm of Star Wars, and there's just a lot of mirrored, like almost like a alternate universe, just 3,000 years before.
Most likely, there won't be as many characters in the movie as there are in the game, because I can't remember how many characters come along with you, but it might be like 9 or something total. I'm like, there's no way they can have that.
One of the biggest things that they were saying that they'll run into is in the video game, when you get onto a planet, they don't tell you the name. So there's a lot of nameless planets that, again, coming from somebody that
planets, but I don't remember. Maybe in the MMO or something. It was that way. Because in the first game I played, there were like 7 or so areas, different planets, and they all had names where all the main stuff took place. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to the story of the Old Republic, even if it's loosely based on what we see as like the main line, the canon story of Revan and Malak.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I think the story is really ripe with possibilities.
Yeah,
because in the Old Republic days, again, this is 4,000 years before Luke and Episode 4. I think there's a lot of cool gray area. There's a lot of great characters. There's new alien races. We've got some really powerful force wielders and cool, force techniques that aren't really present in the newer trilogies.
And I think Angela told me off air that there was a Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the party members is a Mandalorian. I completely forgot.
Yeah, there's just a lot more diversity. It's like, I feel like the Star Wars universe is one of the richest sci-fi universes. Yet on the big screen, we see such a small sliver of it. It just drives me crazy.
Well, I think with the possibility of a Knights of the Old Republic movie or even possibly a trilogy, it opens it up to be kind of darker and grittier than what we're used to with the Star Wars movies.
I'm fine with that.
I would love to see that. I would love to see kind of the beginnings, because correct me if I'm wrong now. Again, as a Trekkie, I could be completely wrong. But my understanding is kind of during this timeline of the Knights of the Old Republic, it's the beginnings of the Sith, and so it's ultimately warring factions within the Jedi that one group is saying let's do this, and the other group is saying no, we need to run it this way, and then they just kind of come to battle and come to a head, and then it evolves from, oh, we're this offshoot of the Jedi to that's when they take on the name of the Sith and kind of become the dark side.
I don't know. What do you know, Angela? Does that ring a bell, or does that sound right?
I know. I think by the time the game starts, I think the Sith are already an established different group, because at one point you do get to go to the Sith planet Korriban, or whatever it's pronounced, and you get to infiltrate it. But I think what I remember is, I think at that time with the Jedi, I think that's when they started establishing the order that we're more familiar with in the movies, where they're like no relationships, no love, and that's where there was a lot of friction.
Yeah,
boiling over between different groups. Because one of the characters I remember in the game that joined you is like a gray Jedi. Like he follows no certain path, because I think he kind of had a falling out with both sides. So he just kind of was a hermit character who lives on Kashyyyk, and he's just kind of isolated himself from everyone.
Yeah, as to the origin of the Sith, I know that the Sith itself is actually an alien race.
Okay.
That was Force, users, and I guess they're more on the darker side. And eventually that became more of a title, less than a race classification. So, like, we are all Sith, regardless of their alien species. But I don't know the canon origin. There's some other legends origin of Sith, which can even go back to Into the Dawn of the Jedi book, which is really great. It's called Into the Void. But that's like 20,000 years before this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Dark Sidious killed his master, right? Mm-hmm. And he was an alien creature, which I didn't know that. I didn't know he was alien.
Yeah, he's a moon. Yeah, Sidious's Plagueis was a moon, which is an alien species.
Yeah. So
that's not confusing at all.
That's no moon. Wait.
Oh no.
Would his
it's no moon, but it is.
Sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
Would his character be around in this time, or is it still too far out for 4,000 years?
He's never been born yet.
Okay.
Not born yet. Yeah. Darth Plagueis was alive, I think even possibly at the same time as but this is all like way before that.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be the next trilogy of movies that's supposed to come out after this?
I mean,
they haven't set it out right.
Yeah, because I know the next trilogy is supposed to be helmed by Game of Thrones creators, so I don't know if that's the same storyline or what.
Which is why I think if they took over the Knights of the Old Republic, it would be very dark, very gritty, and I would love it. I won't lie. I watched all of Game of Thrones. I'm also glad that it's over, because it needed to end. But
you offending people on this episode.
That's fine. That's fine. Star Trek's better.
That's why he's
let's
here.
offend more.
Again with the Star Trek.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with their trilogy, because it has been announced that they're getting a trilogy, but then they also announce that there's another guy that
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson is getting his own trilogy. So we're getting
maybe
two trilogies, and then Kathleen Kennedy with, she was telling that, hey, about the Knights of the Old Republic movie. So there's all kinds of stuff that's coming up. So, but I haven't seen who's officially getting the next trilogy. Well, what it's about, I should say.
I hope that we get a Knights of the Old Republic trilogy, and then I hope that we get a Broom Boy trilogy from Ryan Johnson. Yeah. That would be so awesome.
Oh, you know what? If Knights of the Old Republic is its own movie, that means yellow lightsabers will become canon, because Bastila has one.
Double-sided, right?
Yeah.
So awesome.
Ooh, I'm excited for the new outcome of all the Star Wars stuff. I just feel bad. It's kind of like beating a dead horse with all the Skywalker stuff, but they're really wanting that to go to bed, so we just get on with life.
Long overdue. Yeah, we're finally getting out of the Skywalker black
Which
hole.
is sad. I mean, but at the same time, we're just, come on already.
That's why I need Broom Boy, because he's not a Skywalker. Yeah,
that
he's
we know.
Oh gosh, please don't let him be a Skywalker. Han really went over the deep end.
No, that one's Leia's son with another guy.
Oh snap! Soap opera.
That's Leia's grandchild. Disney Plus on November 12th is going to be releasing their first season with 8 episodes. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I had a lot of friends that went to the Star Wars Celebration, and they're like, guys, you don't even know. And I was like, really? Is it that good? And they're like, yeah, because they showed a trailer, but they have not released to the public. And now they're like, guys.
I saw some footage online. I don't know if it was leaked or whatever, but there's some footage out that you can find of the Mandalorian. It looks great.
I know the Mandalorian looks like it's going to be phenomenal. And of course, bringing in Jon Favreau to helmet, I think was a brilliant move on their part.
Nate, do we know when this story of the Mandalorian is happening?
So it places between the fall of the Empire and the rise of the First Order.
I wonder if this is going to be set on Mandalore, where the Mandalorians are, or what? Because from what I've read, I feel like this is not going to be too Skywalker-y or really any at all. It's going to be kind of a new area, new corner of the galaxy, as Jon Favreau said, that we haven't really seen before. Which
on the edge of the galaxy.
Oh, freaking edge of the galaxy again. There's a lot of edges, If the galaxy's a circle, there's a lot of edges. So
actually, that's legit what the only description of the show is so far. Says the show will follow a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic.
It's like the Wild West, It's it's like Firefly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I saw I think a Celebration or somewhere, the actor who's playing the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, he said that the character has a lot of Clint Eastwood in him.
Oh,
ooh,
literal Wild West.
Go ahead,
partner.
Make my day.
Nice.
Awesome. Maybe this will be a Western set in space. Again, like Firefly. We'll see. I mean, the Mandalorians are bad A's. They are, hunters, and they can fight. They know how to take care of stuff. So,
I mean, clearly that was given in the Star Wars special.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't speak of that.
So speaking of the Mandalorian show that's coming out that we're all pretty excited about, including this guy, did y'all hear that they have actually come out and said Boba and Jango Fett are not Mandalorians?
Sacrilege. Wow. Says who?
I don't know how I feel about that, but
wait,
it's okay.
Why? Where?
So according to Star Wars: The Clone Wars in season 2, episode 12, entitled "The Mandalore Plot," Obi-Wan is talking about the new Mandalore being a far cry from its past. And he's talking with Prime Minister Almec. He states Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter, and how he acquired that armor is beyond me.
Oh, he's a poser.
So so the Fetts are not Mandalorians.
Huh.
Oh, then.
I always kind of got the feeling that he was different than the traditional Mandalorians, because they're kind of tribal and clan based, but he's just sort of a lone gunman type of guy making money off of stuff. Yeah, bounty hunter. I mean, that's what he is. So that's interesting. I didn't know they had established that. Well then, I guess we're going to get a taste of what a real Mandalorian's like in The Mandalorian.
More bounty hunters.
Woo.
Watch them mention Jango Fett. He's like, yeah, that poser.
That would be really
We
funny.
don't speak of him. Yeah, it happened.
He's a fake. He's a phony. You mentioned Pedro Pascal. He's going to be the Mandalorian of the show. We've also got Taika Waititi. He's going to play the voice of IG-11 or IG-11. That's awesome, because this droid is a terrifying assassin psycho droid.
Oh man!
I definitely encourage you to look up IG-11 because the design of him is really unique. Just do IG-11 droid or Star Wars.
I wonder if it's going to be like the droid that was in Knights of the Old Republic.
Can I kill him now?
Yeah, he was an assassin.
Oh, really?
Crazy droid, so we'll see.
Well, this droid's been around since the original trilogy, and he's in, I think, episode 4 or 5.
Really?
Kind of in the background. Yeah, so Vader hires, different assassins to take care of something, and one of them is IG-11, and the other one is Boba Fett. And there's some other 4-LOM and some other classic assassin characters in the Star Wars universe that, of course, we have novels and novels about now. But originally, they were just, throwaway characters.
Yeah, I saw that, what you just said. I was looking, I was like, man, that dude looks like the robots from episode 1, 2, and 3. But I didn't realize he was an assassin, because I was like, that makes sense why I saw him standing right beside Vader and some fan art.
Yeah, he's got a connection to Anakin, at least just professional, being hired by him. So that's cool. Do you guys hope that in this show that they will reference events from the original trilogy? Because like you said, this is, freshly after Return of the Jedi, so.
Yeah.
Probably somewhat, but I wouldn't expect a lot.
I hope it's its own beast.
Yeah.
Where they just try not to reference too much. If they have to, I guess in a good sense, where it's not just like, oh, it's like when we were blah, 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 just randomly out of nowhere. It's like, okay. Like, in good matter, I hope it's brought up and not just randomly.
There's a lot of Star Wars novels that take place during already established movie events. And it's kind of interesting because, like, for instance, Lost Stars takes place, I think, during the destruction of the first or second Death Star. I think it's the second Death Star. And so they're talking about Luke, the characters who have no relation. They don't live anywhere near, Luke and Leia. But they're referencing, like, Luke, the hero of the Republic or the hero of the Rebels. And I think one of the characters in Lost Stars actually does fly in an X-Wing or somehow assists in one of the raids that the Rebels are doing. And Luke is in a ship, elsewhere. So that's kind of an interesting, kind of a parallel story that's happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And they reference things. I'm curious if they'll do that. It doesn't seem like they will. I feel like you said, Nate, they're going to try to keep it in an isolated bubble.
Which is fine by me because it'll give us a new rush of breath air with Star Wars stuff.
I think the best way to do it is to probably make a reference to it in the first episode, so you kind of know where it falls in the timeline, and then just leave it from there.
All right, so moving out of the Star Wars stuff, let's talk about fantasy, which Star Wars is fantasy, but still, we're moving on to more fantasy.
Less sci-fi.
Angela, what do you got for us concerning Wheel of Time?
So apparently Amazon has acquired the rights to make a Wheel of Time TV series.
Cool.
Wheel of Time is a fantasy series from the 80s, and how long has it been going on? Because that, I'm not sure of. There's a lot of books.
It looks like the earliest book to come out, the first book, The Eye of the World, which is like the first book of the series, is 1990. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was a prequel in 2004, but Eye of the World started the whole thing in the 90s, and then it went on and on and on. The most recent one by Brandon Sanderson is released in 2013. So, yeah.
Well, I can't imagine following the series from the very beginning, and only now.
23 years.
Wow.
That's insane.
15 books later.
Oh, might be the same with Sanderson.
It was originally, the series was started by and written by Robert Jordan. And like Angela said, it was finished, at least the most recent 3 novels. I don't know if it's like done, but they were written by Brandon Sanderson after Robert Jordan passed. So that's really cool that, another skilled fantasy writer was able to kind of carry the torch and finish the series. And of all people, I mean, Brandon Sanderson, wow, he's a new favorite of mine because I just finished the second Mistborn book, and I'm still working my way through that 30-hour The Way of Kings book.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I think it's 20. It's only 25 hours only.
Oh, only 25.
Very, very long. But it's well worth it because Brandon Sanderson's world building.
Yeah.
And
you just say 25 hours is worth it.
It is.
I couldn't finish it.
His world building and his character development are just top notch, and I'm really enjoying it because I've been listening to nothing about sci-fi for like 5+ years, and so I'm finally getting some good quality fantasy in my system, and it makes me happy. But concerning Brandon Sanderson, I believe someone, I don't know if it's Amazon, but someone has purchased the rights to the Cosmere, which is kind of the franchise name for Brandon Sanderson's own books that he's done on his own, which includes the Mistborn books, the Stormlight Archives books, which is Way of Kings is the first book of that, and I think a few other straggling book series in between that. They kind of interconnect his other series. So, yeah, we could be seeing a Mistborn or more likely Stormlight Archives show, like maybe in 5 to possibly 10 years, God forbid.
Oh, my gosh.
But, I mean, this stuff takes a lot of time to make.
It's true, man.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, I feel like fantasy is harder to make than sci-fi. That's why we don't see a whole lot of it.
Well, because you have to make it good. You can't just make a low-budget fantasy series because, I mean, let's be honest, in a situation like that, then you come out with Hercules or Xena that might have been decent back in their day, but you look on it now and you're like, this was crap.
God bless their little hearts. They tried. I totally had a crush on Gabrielle.
Oh my God.
Remember her? Woo, that bow staff.
Oh Lord. Hey.
She could knock me out any day. What do you guys think about this? My theory is that Game of Thrones, with all of its success, has made fantasy cool and profitable again. Do you guys kind of see a connection between that and all these other fantasy shows coming up?
Probably. I'd have to agree. I mean, I've never watched Game of Thrones, so maybe I'm not one to talk, but I just know people talk about how, I don't know, I guess revolutionary like a lot of the battle scenes were, especially for TV. So it set a really high new standard that impressed a lot of people.
Yeah, production quality was high.
I completely agree. I mean, it was something different than anything that we saw on TV in general. I mean, we see sci-fi, we see superhero shows, we see just the regular generic cop shows, and then you get a show like Game of Thrones, which is completely different, completely new.
Like it.
And there's nothing like it with the massive world that it created over the 8 seasons. I'm concerned that it's going to also usher in this time of fantasy, which I think we all agree is going to be fun, but then we're going to really just grow weary of it very quickly.
Yeah, everyone might jump on this bandwagon, and that's inevitably going to bring some low quality stuff.
Yeah.
At some point, the whole fantasy crash is going to happen.
Yeah.
Just like how it was with zombies and...
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Still going strong somehow.
Zombies and vampires.
Somewhat.
So worn out. The vampire phrase died a few years ago, thankfully.
Yeah.
The only other fantasy-ish show I can think of is Shannara Chronicles, which I don't think even did that good. And that was done by MTV, which is really random.
What? Really? That's weird.
Yeah, no, that one's already been canceled.
Oh, yeah. And it's not new, and it definitely does not compare to Game of Thrones in any way. But, like, I can't think of any other fantasy shows. Like, it's all sci-fi stuff. In the fiction world, at least. So... I think this is good because people, from what I've been hearing concerning Game of Thrones fandom, is that people love the story. They love the characters and the drama. And the fact that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like no one's really fully good and no one's really fully bad. There's just so much, like, people have their favorite characters and they'll just swear by them.
Yeah, it was definitely had this moral ambiguity to the show because it was... Everybody was self-serving. It was this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to accomplish it. So
and I think fantasy is a great vehicle for character stories like this. Sci-fi it can work for that too, but you got to really try. You have to keep it back to a character-based story instead of getting into like sciencey stuff and just science-based stories. Cough Star Trek, but see what I did there?
All right,
that was a good one, right? That was good. But fantasy is really great for people stories and character and drama. And I feel like a lot of people have just fallen in love with that element in Game of Thrones, which you really don't get in a lot of other shows. So I love that about fantasy. And I'm hoping that this is kind of a springboard for other successful fantasy shows that will not end as terribly as Game of Thrones did. Because I just can't. I'm still not hearing the end of it. People still complaining about Game of Thrones endings.
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting after watching 8 full seasons of it. So
they have a petition out of redoing it. I was like, wow,
gosh, stupid petitions. Redo petitions do not work.
No,
they will never. They will never do that.
Except for when it came to Sonic the Hedgehog and redoing his design.
True.
Well, that one had to happen.
That was Destiny.
I feel so bad for the animators, though. They have to go back and fix everything.
Have they released anything of the redone?
No,
Sonic?
so they actually have pushed back the release date.
Oh, well, that's
of course they did because of this. I think that's what happened with Battle Angel Alita. There's so much CGI, it got pushed back like by 4 or 5 additional months, and I think it's just because of the post production. Which stinks. Can you imagine being the CGI artist that worked and got paid for so many hours and months of work, and then your manager comes in and is like, "All right, guys, this petition." Yeah, it went through. We got to redo everything.
And I'm sure like a lot of the animators saw problems from the very beginning with the design.
Definitely.
Just went through with it.
I told you so.
What happened? I really hope they're at least good when they're done redoing it.
Yeah.
It'd be
After all this
awful
work,
if it
it's
still
worse.
looked like garbage.
One giant eye instead of 2.
Yeah, they're spending a lot of money on this redo, so it better work out good for them.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey is in it. How random is that?
It is really weird, especially since it's like this is his first comeback to something more funny, I guess, in a long time.
Yeah, it is.
Dumb and Dumber
I think he's doing
time.
it for the irony, honestly. I think he knows this is going to be garbage and he doesn't care. He wants to just be a part of this dumpster fire.
It's Jim Carrey recycling his old jokes and his old characters in this. And so I agree. I think it's the irony of it, and it's just to kind of keep his name out there.
So he needs to be more self-aware with Hollywood and stuff like that. I feel like he's doing this on purpose.
I think Jim Carrey is too self-aware.
Yeah.
Have you seen his videos? He is really out
I've probably
there.
just seen a couple, but I haven't watched much.
I watched this doc on him. And goodness, it hurt my head.
I'm sure it was a trip.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was about a character he played, and I was like, yeah, no.
Oh yeah, he got like real into that character. He was him for like some period of time.
Lord.
I don't know what the deal is.
It was trippy. It was
I don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah, because he was trying to be a method actor and really got dark because the actor that he was portraying he was kind of pretty dark in his real life also, and so that documentary was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
He doesn't go down like a Heath Ledger road if he keeps doing stuff like this. Somebody keep an eye on him, please.
Let's bring it back to the fantasy TV stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's another big series coming out that we're super excited about. Lord of the freaking Rings.
Heck.
Woo!
I have
There's
ears.
sunshine here.
Don't spoil anything.
This is why I'm here, everybody.
Oh yeah, we got to not spoil this because brace yourself for this. Nate has not seen the Twin Towers or Return of the King.
Okay, wait. Twin Towers. Why are you here, Dane?
Oh, sorry, Two Towers.
I wasn't going to correct it. So.
I will now jump off the cliff.
We're keeping this in the podcast.
I was going to see the true fans caught that.
Hey, Angela, you and I will just take the podcast from here.
Yes.
I guess so.
Let's take the reins.
Here you
here.
go. Here's all the passwords.
Good Lord. Nate has not seen the Two Towers or the Return of the King as of yet. So we're going to stay far away from talking about the movies, and most likely it's going to be pretty easy to, honestly, because the new TV show is taking place like over 3,000 years before the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. So
it just seems to be the trend. Everything happens
Good
4,000 or 3,000 years prior.
So Amazon purchased the rights to, I guess, the whole Tolkien estate back in 2017, I believe, for $250 million. And they're going to be spending, I think, another $750 million on the TV show because they've already ordered $1 billion so far spent. That'd be awful. But I think they've already ordered like 5 seasons. So they're pretty confident it's going to be good. And I'm like, I've never heard of this being done before. So fingers crossed this is going to be amazing.
Amazon's like, stick it, Netflix.
They really want to be like a top dog here in the streaming business because they have not competed with Netflix or Hulu so far. So hopefully this makes them a contender. It better, because I will be very disappointed.
Yeah, at $1 billion, if they're not a contender, then
I know.
Good grief.
But so far they have not started production. They should be sometime this year because I think they're contractually obligated to start it by 2020. So hopefully we'll see the first season by maybe 2021.
And not surprisingly, more Game of Thrones writers are working on this show.
Yeah, at least they're going to have one of the producers being a consultant for the show. They're going to help oversee, I guess, the lore, making sure everything is tied together accurately with the books.
Yeah. What if you were hired? I've been thinking about this because Star Wars and all the Marvel movies have come to kind of a close. What if you were hired by, say, Amazon or Disney to be like a historian, authenticity consultant for a show's like fandom? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, I'm right here to be hired.
We need you to make a full timeline of all the events and make sure that we're not screwing things up. Like, that would be so cool.
I honestly feel bad for whoever has to do it for Lord of the Rings because the lore is so huge.
Intense.
Like, even I cannot keep everything straight.
Yeah.
They're going to have to, like, hire scholars because there are people out there that have, like, know all the stuff. And that's, like, their college, like, degree almost.
They know all of the languages that Tolkien created.
They probably hired somebody that was already a fan before Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, you can't just get someone that's new to the franchise that doesn't know the stuff already.
Yeah.
And honestly, the books have been around for so long. There are people that really know the stuff back and forth. So they better get someone good, though, because if they screw some time up or they mess up something that's, from the Silmarillion.
Nerds with pitchforks.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. Yeah.
Gonna happen. So
I actually rereading part of the Silmarillion recently, which is the book that kind of like the world building book. It's like the Book of Genesis for
it does practically have a Book of Genesis
say that.
in it.
It really is. And the elves are the Jews, and humans are the Gentiles or the heathens. It's a beautiful book. Have any of you guys read any of the Silmarillion?
I have. I've read it twice, but it's been a long time since I've read it through all the way.
Nate has too much of a life.
Nah, just joking.
Need to fix that.
Why are you
I prefer
here?
not to read.
Yeah, I don't have a spreadsheet, so.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, you know what? Me and my spreadsheet are happy.
No, I'm happy you're in
Getting
order.
my torch and pitchfork ready and coming for you, Nate.
No, I joke about your spreadsheet, but I'm happy you're in order about your reads.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I for those clueless listeners, I have
OCD,
a little spreadsheet with all the books I read, and I keep them on my spreadsheet. And I write my star rating and all the information. That way, if someone's like, "Hey, I want to read a good fantasy book," and
Let me get my spreadsheet.
Copy paste. Yeah. Hold on, let me get my spreadsheet real quick. 1 second.
Oh my god.
I think I'm up to about 90 books now. Like in the past 3-4 years maybe.
My gosh.
Plus 30
Daniel.
books a year.
Audiobooks, mind you, and I listen really fast. So
I listen really fast. I know what you mean by that, but that just sounds really
I listen
weird.
fast. I listen to my audiobooks at 1.5, sometimes 1.75 times speed. It saves me a lot of time.
1.50 seems about normal for readers.
Yeah, when I listen to books at normal speed, 1x, it's like slow motion.
We're going to be talking about oh god.
How do you
Dress
listen
like
to people in
American
real
Diamonds.
life after that?
All right, so for Lord of the Rings, looks like Peter Jackson's not going to be involved. How do y'all feel about that?
Shady.
A little sad, but I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised.
I'm okay with it. Let's see what somebody else can do with it. I mean, especially since we're going prequel, you almost have the availability to do anything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it allows Peter Jackson's take on everything just to remain untouched and as pure as it is.
I totally agree.
So
this is sort of in the same arena as Knights of the Old Republic, where the new story that's going to be yet to be written is taking place so far in the past that they can do whatever they want and it won't conflict or even affect, through the dispersion of time, it won't be affecting the established, already released movies. And I'm not sure, Angela, maybe you know this, but do you know if the Silmarillion crosses through this time of the Second Age?
It does somewhat. The Silmarillion is mainly about the First Age, and probably only one section of the book deals with the Second Age. So there's not a ton that's chronicled about it, but I think it's during this period where Sauron forges the Rings of Power. And the main bulk of it is, do you guys recall the story of Numenor at all? How that's where Aragorn's lineage comes from?
Yeah. They're humans. But
I don't know what makes them so special. I cannot remember. I know they're blessed with longer life than most men. And basically they kind of had this sort of utopia island paradise that they all lived on.
Right.
But
so well, it's in Middle Earth, but it's in its own little country island.
Yeah, it's a little bit away from the mainland.
Yeah.
I can't remember how far, but something happens that basically creates their downfall. They get flooded out entirely. Big waves crashing, doom reigns upon this island. And
maybe it's a little bit of a flood story.
Yeah, sort of. It kind of essentially turns into an Atlantean sort of legend almost with the people of Middle Earth.
Cool.
So I expect at some point in the show they're going to cover all that, which is going to be probably really epic, I'm sure.
That'd be great.
But I don't want to spoil too much of it, and mostly because I don't remember a lot of the stuff that went down. So look forward to that.
Middle Earth is one of those super rich worlds, kind of like Star Wars universe, where there's so many potential stories that could be happening anywhere. You just have to look there long enough to watch and follow this thing unfolding. So they could easily do 5 seasons of just epicness.
They could.
And it not even touch what the Silmarillion did.
Oh, I know. They'll probably have to do a whole entire separate series just for that.
It'd be cool. I'd love them to go back even further. So it's going to be, I'm assuming it's going to actually be called Lord of the Rings. They could name it something else. But
they could name it
if it is.
But if they start off with Sauron forging the Ring of Powers, I mean, he is the Lord of the Rings. So
yeah,
it still
he is
ties
the Lord,
in.
not Hobbit. Yeah, I was listening to, I think it was the second book. It was a shortened version of The Two Towers. And I had realized the Lord of the Rings is not Frodo. The Lord of the Rings is Sauron because he made him. So I don't know. It never clicked for me until recently.
do we happen to know if like casting information or if anybody's returning from the Lord of the Rings?
Gandalf was the only one that I heard. I read a little bit like Gandalf, like,
Well,
but
that'd be
then
nice, but we don't
it
know.
would. That's what I was saying. And then I joked earlier in the week that they're going to use the guy that plays Magneto from X-Men for Gandalf,
Like
the younger
new one,
version.
No.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. That would be so funny, but no.
He's just going to make a career playing a young Ian McKellen.
That would be so funny.
Perfect.
Yeah, as of yet, there's been no casting information released. The only slight bit of information, and it's really nothing, is that Ian McKellen has expressed interest in reprising the role of Gandalf, but he has not been asked to yet. Because it would make sense for Gandalf to be somewhat in these stories because he's been around basically since the very beginning of time because he's almost like a demigod sort of figure, like an angel more accurately.
He's a Mary Sue.
What are some things, and Angela, I feel like you're probably more versed in Lord of the Rings lore, but what are some things that you're hoping to see in this show that haven't maybe been touched in the movies? Anything in particular?
I'm just trying to think of what else happens in the Second Age, and it's really tricky. I mean, I guess seeing like ancestors of famous characters like Aragorn's forefathers, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe Elrond and Galadriel could show up.
Yeah, they're alive during that time.
So I do have a question for you. As far because I don't know if it's Second Age, First Age. I don't know any of that. But in the movies, there's a conversation between Aragorn and the elves, and they're talking. They hint at this. I guess it's the last alliance of the elves and men. I mean, one, did that happen during the Second Age? And if so, I know I'd be interested in seeing like what really happened. Like why don't the elves and men like each other anymore?
Well, I think you actually got to see the last alliance in the beginning of the first movie with the fighting in Mordor against Sauron, against his physical form.
Oh, okay.
That was the last alliance. And they basically never got together again because of Isildur not throwing the ring into Mount Doom.
Oh, okay.
When Elrond was there. So basically they've looked down on men ever since then.
Interesting. So I'm looking at a chart, and so within the Second Age, there's 4,000 years of history.
Of course there is.
The first, second, third, and fourth millennium.
Yeah.
And so at the end, it looks like at the end of the fourth millennium, the Numenor, the place, falls. It's called the downfall of Numenor. And then about almost 20 years after that is the defeat of Sauron and the end of the age.
Yeah, we're probably just going to be seeing the tail end of the Second Age because the information I saw said the series is set to begin 3,441 years before the Fellowship of the Ring. And if I remember right, like the Fellowship of the Ring stuff, that all happens like the year 3000 almost exactly of the Third Age. So we're only getting like the last 400 years, I guess, the Second Age stuff happening. I guess they're going to go straight to the good stuff with Sauron building up Mordor and his tower and all the great rings and the flooding of Numenor and all that stuff. I don't know how many seasons that'll take. Maybe that'll just be the first season. What? But those are the only major events I can think of that happened during that time. So
I don't remember the name, but there was a movie that just came out that had something to do with the author of the Lord of the Rings. Is that? Am I?
Yeah, Tolkien.
Yeah. Okay. So does that show anything moving forward, or is that just more of the, I guess, autobiography of?
Yeah.
No, it's just an autobiography of him. The fantasy clips that you see in the trailer, I think that's sort of just a retelling of his just imagination of the fantasy world in general.
Yeah, I want to say it's kind of building off what you were just saying, Daniel. It's referencing what he saw during World War I, and how that played into his storytelling.
It's cool to see all the new effects and graphics and CGI.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Looks really well done. Yeah, I'm hoping to see more of the cosmology come into play of the Second Age, which is like the bigger picture of the world. You know, maybe even Iluvatar, the god character being mentioned. I would love to see some Ainur, which are like the top angels. The Valar and the Maiar are underneath the Ainur. So the Valar is, and the Maiar, I think, is what
Gandalf is.
That's what Gandalf is a Maiar. They're kind of like a sub angel.
All the
like
wizards
a servant
are
of the main. Yeah, all the wizards are Maiar. I'm not sure what the Valar are, but they also serve the Ainur. And the Ainur are like the top, like the main angel creatures that God made directly. So there's a lot of mythology, and there could be a lot of religion. The elves could worship them. But we barely get any hints of this kind of stuff at all in Lord of the Rings. There's
No.
one line where Gandalf says that I'm the keeper of the secret fire.
Yeah.
And that is a direct reference to kind of like the spirit of God, like the secret fire is like God's like heart or God's like mind, something like that.
As far as I'm
It's very vague.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing.
Yeah,
I think they
next to
mentioned
nothing.
they mentioned the halls of the Valar or something like that, which is where the
Yeah.
elves go across the sea.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see more of the mythology. Or it's really not even myth. It's like the truth, the facts of the world.
Because honestly, like I think what causes the downfall of Numenor is somebody tries to sail to the Undying Lands because there used to be like a path near there or something like that, and you're not allowed to go there if you're a man. So they're trying to get to the realm where the Valar are, and I think they're the ones that caused the flooding of Numenor. So we might get to see some of that. It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it's called The Changing of the World.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look that up. So pretty cool stuff. I love it. Tolkien's a freaking genius. I don't know how he did it.
Crazy madman.
It makes me want to see Tolkien. I want to see.
I know.
I want to know more about him.
We're talking about this new era of fantasy, and there's a couple of big name shows coming out that are also fantasy, like The Witcher.
Oh yeah,
with Henry Cavill coming out on Netflix.
Yes.
They just completed filming on that.
Ooh.
And then his Dark Materials is coming out on HBO, and then Netflix purchased the rights to the Chronicles of Narnia.
What, really?
Oh snap!
Yeah,
so excited.
We get to finish all the books off finally.
Yeah, that's kind of some of the articles that I saw as far as the Chronicles of Narnia goes, is the fact that it's kind of a reboot, but they're at the same time they're actually going to be able to hit some of the books that the movies weren't able to do.
Right.
So
hopefully they don't make the lion look bad.
You gotta do the CG right on Aslan. Can't look worse than you did before.
Just get a real lion.
Get a real one.
I mean, the engine's out there because they used it on the new Lion King that will be coming out. So no excuses.
Just rent that CGI model from Lion King and use that.
It looks just like him. So I was like, wow.
Hey guys, can we borrow the file? Yeah,
That's awesome.
Looking at it real quick, with the Chronicles of Narnia series that Netflix bought, they also included the rights to the prequel novel, The Magician's Nephew.
Right.
Oh, good.
So we are definitely entering into a new era of fantasy TV shows.
Nate and I did talk about the Narnia purchase a few episodes back, and it does seem to be a series, correct? Not a movie redo?
Yes. Yeah. So what I've seen is it's going to be a series.
Woo.
Okay, so here is the idea. I think Nate might have proposed it. What if they do one season per book?
That's what I was about to say.
Would that be awesome?
That'd be awesome, yeah.
I think that's the only way to do it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that would be so cool. Like you could have 7 seasons, maybe a 10 or 14 episode per season.
And we would just get to the point because without skipping anything or taking anything out, I was just like, 7 seasons is long enough. And
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they could stretch it for money and sales, but
no,
that's pretty stretched.
Yeah. Each season, each book. Let's just keep it simple, people.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing that. My kids are going to grow up in a good decade.
Yeah.
Star Wars everywhere, Lord of the Rings, Narnia.
Yeah.
Ours was the MCU for 10 years, and now they're switching all that. And we're getting new Star Wars stuff.
Back in my day, we had to actually read the books. Now they just get to watch everything.
That's how I feel. I trust people that have taken a 25-hour book and made 2 hours of all I need to know.
Sunrise.
I've been waiting for this era.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where they go if they make a Mistborn movie or TV show.
You're just going to stay away from that series until the TV series
probably.
comes out.
I need someone to read it to me.
That's what audiobooks are for. Oh my God.
I just see if y'all are paying attention.
Good grief.
All right, well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you guys for joining in this conversation and for bringing all those interesting things to the table. Like I said, this is what a decade to live in, right? For nerds. What a year. What a decade. So we would love to hear back from you guys about all of this. Are you excited about a specific series? Are you not looking forward to something? What are some things you'd love to see in the upcoming Star Wars movies or even Lord of the Rings series, things like that? Let us know. You can comment on our social media posts on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Check us out on there and follow us. And if you like the episode, be sure to share it. We would appreciate that very much. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
What is a rebel shock trooper?
They walk up behind you with defibrillators.
That's a weird kind of trooper to have.
That was a dad joke.
Like the ones that are in charge of bringing everybody back to life at the end.